Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I am the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today we have Field Mcconnell in the house. So please, everybody, if you have a question for Field, there is a logo on the wall that says Field Mcconnell. Write your question underneath there, and I will read them at some point in this podcast. Otherwise, if you want to ask Field your question, please feel free to raise your hand, and I will unmute your mic at some point in this podcast. Also, to everybody, I can't tell you enough. Please be careful who you listen to and who you follow. A lot of crazy stuff going on out there. If you haven't seen it yet, it is happening. If you didn't listen to Alpha Warrior show with us the other day, listen to it because he talks about the 5 faces of within this movement that many of us have encountered. I'm sure one of you have encountered one of those faces or maybe all 5. It was a very, very good uh, presentation that he gave. So check it out, everybody, because it is spot on. Also, too, everybody, if you come into the podcast late, please feel free to go follow any of the podcast hosts or the social medias, which are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Podbean, Riverside, and Amazon Music. We are being listened to in over 100 countries, everybody. So we are making some noise, and it's the positive noise. So stay out of that noise, everybody. A lot of noise going on out there. Look over here when we should be looking over there. Also, too, social medias are Jenny Jareed Facebook at Jenny underscore Jareed Twitter, now X at J Jareed Rumble, at J Jareed Instagram, at J Jareed True Social, the Revival of America over right here on Telegram, and the Revival of America over on YouTube. That is the newest social media I have created. So if you can't follow us on all those other ones I told you, a lot of you I know have YouTube, so check us out over there because that is a new one. And the 3 that are not verified are YouTube, True Social, and TikTok. Oh, and TikTok at the official J Jareed. I'm trying to do better over there, but I am getting all of these verified, so you guys know that these are my legitimate accounts. Because unfortunately, I do have imposters out there trying to be cute and think they're going to try to scam people. So be careful, everybody. They are out there. They're messaging you, pretending to be me or Captain Kyle's, SGN, whomever it may be. Know that we will not randomly reach out to you. If you get something like that, please block report. Let us know so we can make sure that they're not here in our pages trying to scam you, the people, because it is happening out there. And it is really unfortunate the stories that I hear how people's livelihoods have literally been taken out from underneath them because of these scammers. Also, too, everybody, if you have a journey or a story to tell, please reach out to me at the Revival of America at yahoo.com. We'll get your voice, your story on the show because remember, everybody, it is your story, your journey that's going to help shape this new world we're coming into. And last but not least, check out the website, everybody. Go sign up for the newsletter. It is free. You get the weekly updates on the show lineup, the guests, and the times, as well as the latest updates on the podcast. So sign up for that at therevivalofamerica.com, and you guys can get that. That'll get emailed to you I believe it's early Monday morning. Also, too, what I'm going to do, everybody, for those of you that are submitting stories and wanting to get your voice and story on the show, I'm going to create a separate email for that because a lot of times it gets tied up in my email and I get a ton of emails every day. So I apologize if I haven't gotten back to you yet, but my emails clog up on a daily basis. So I'm going to have, for now, it's at the Revival of America at yahoo.com, but I am going to create one and I'll let you know what it is, but it's going to be the Revival of America story submission or something like that. So I will, once I get that created, I'll get that out to you guys. So for those of you that are submitting stories and want to get your voices on the podcast, that is where you will be able to submit those here coming in the next few days. So watch for that, everybody. And without further ado, we have Field in the house. Everybody, next week, we've had to push some shows. So just everybody just know that our shows aren't always set in stone for those days. Sometimes we have to move things around because people have, I had family in town, holidays come up, people are out of town. So just watch for those things because we've had to move Field to Friday this week, and he'll be Friday next week because Monday's Memorial Day. We're not going to have any shows. And Derek, he's out of town on speaking events, so he'll be back on the 2nd of June. So just bear with us. We do a lot of maneuvering, and it's because everybody has their day lives, right? And life happens, and we're doing this voluntarily to come and give you this information. So of course, family, God, and family always comes first. So bear with us on that. But I definitely always let you guys know when those changes are being made. So with that, how are you, Field?
I'm just fine. How are you, Jenny?
I'm doing fabulous. It's Friday. It's the weekend. It's a long weekend, and I hope everybody enjoys it and takes this time out and steps away from all of this stuff for a minute and enjoy your friends and family because at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about as well. So, what do you got going on this long weekend? Anything?
If that question's for me, no, I don't have anything going on at all. Just a quiet weekend, but I'm glad to be here today. And, I'm perfectly happy being on Friday next week too. And you can always move me around whenever you want with little or no notice, and that won't bother me a bit.
Well, I love that you're workable on that, so I appreciate that. So everybody, Field will be on next Friday, and he is going to talk about. I think you guys are gonna really like what he's going to talk about today, but we'll go into that here in a second. But next Friday, he's going to talk about the Waco attack over there, and then also the Oklahoma bombing. So this is something that we have not touched on. Maybe a little bit. He's touched on a little bit, but not in depth that he's going to go into next week. So that'll be next Friday. So watch for that. And Phil, do you want to let them know what you're going to be speaking about today? I'm really excited for the audience to hear this.
Well, I think you told me and I shouldn't say you told me. I mean, we agreed that I was going to be talking about the Pentagon and perhaps the existence of a radar from a satellite radar image of the USS George Washington launching a Raytheon A3 Sky Warrior, and that was up near New York City. And it's not real clear what the purpose of that Sky Warrior was. There was another one that struck the Pentagon, but somehow the Russians, bless their hearts, they've been our allies for a long time, started in the Civil War, and they've been vilified by a lot of media in the United States. And I would just say consider the source, because the mainstream media didn't know their ass from third base, and they make stuff up just like attorneys do. But anyway, I'm willing to talk about whatever you wish for me to talk about. And last night in the chat room, we had sort of a dry run, and I thought it went well, and I thought it invited some good questions. And one of my favorite compliments to give you, Jenny, and I do it consistently, is I love your format where we introduce some broad topics and then we go right to questions and answers, because the reason I like Q&A is because that should prove to anyone's satisfaction that I don't have the questions in advance, because the questions come in a live format, and then I can either answer them if I know the answer, or I'll say, I don't know the answer, but I will find out. And so, without further hesitation, how would you like to get this started today, Jenny?
Well, I would like go ahead and let's start in on the topic that we were talking about with the Pentagon last night and the quote unquote missile that hit it, right, and then we'll go into some Q&A because we've heard about this a little bit before, but I don't think you have spoken about it in the degree and the depth that you did last night. I learned definitely some information last night for sure, and I think the chat room did as well. So yeah, why don't you go ahead and start there, and then after that we'll just go into some Q&A.
Okay, well, relating to the Pentagon attack on the morning of 9/11, uh, 2001, there's a lot of arguments going back and forth. A plane hit it. Well, that's a plane hitting the exterior of the Pentagon would have left scars and openings, because if the wings were not found outside the Pentagon, the wings would therefore, by default, have to be inside the Pentagon. And that circular hole on the Pentagon's outer wall in Wedge 7, I believe it was, and the the office that whatever hit the Pentagon, and I'll get down to telling you exactly what hit it and when, uh, but it left a 15 to 16-foot circular entry wound, and there was no damage to the outside wall from what should have been the wings, allegedly, of an American Airlines Flight 77, which did not hit the Pentagon. It overflew the Pentagon about 45 minutes prior to the attack, and it went out into Whiskey 386 Alpha. I want to say that again. W 386 Alpha airspace, the entry point for which is approximately 60 miles due east of Norfolk, Virginia. And the controller on that day in history, the military controller allowing entry into Whiskey 386, and I can't make this up, and I am a creative writer, but I'm not being creative here. I'm just being historically sound. The military controller for Whiskey 386 Alpha Airspace, his call sign was Giant Killer. Now, if you understand what the purpose of the 9/11 attack was, it was to destroy once and for all the United States of America. And where do I get my information? Well, my sister, who I believe is no longer with us, was one of the most evil and destructive agents in the shadow government of the United States of America, which the shadow government was going to inherit what was left of the United States had the 9/11 attack been successful, which it was not. Now, some people would say, Field, how can you say it wasn't successful? It caused 2,998 deaths in the World Trade Centers, Towers 1 and 2, and it caused millions of deaths in some of the wars that started up in response to 9/11, because the people who did 9/11, one of which was my sister, and one of which was her close friend, wink, wink, Hillary Clinton. And those two are two of the most evil women in this generation of Americans, of which I know. So a lot of times people will ask me how I know a lot of this stuff, like we're going to talk about today, the Pentagon, the Russian surveillance of the USS George Washington, uh, the Branch Davidian, and the Murrah building. Well, the reason I know about it is I have a front row seat because my only sibling, it's Christine Marcy, and she was involved in all those things, and she was involved at the management level. And if I wanted to list the four greatest traitors in recent history in the United States, I would put my sister and George H.W. Bush on the first tier, TIER, and I would put Hillary Clinton and John McCain, the disgraced former senator from Arizona, on the second tier. And between those four personalities, or lack of personality, whichever's the case, 9/11 and the failure to win, the bad guys did not win 9/11. The good guys suffered a lot of losses, but they didn't suffer the loss of my country, which is our country, the United States of America. It does not and never did belong to the shadow government. And for them to try to facilitate the fatal attack of 9/11, well, they probably should have had better help than the bums they had running it. Hillary Clinton, my sister Christine Marcy, George H.W. Bush. Now, a lot of people think he's an American president. Well, he was president, all right, but he's not an American. He was a German Nazi, and he was also a pedophile. What a lovely guy. And then John McCain, he used to champion himself. He would say that he was a military hero. Well, Donald Trump doesn't believe that, and neither do I. And I've made it very clear to Donald Trump's military white hats, and it was several years ago that I contacted the White Hats and identified myself in a lot of different ways, one of which was saying my real name, Field Mcconnell. But then the critical part was after my name, Field Mcconnell, I put USMC 0116513, and that alerted the White Hats to my military records. I went to the Naval Academy, whoop-de-doo. I joined the Marine Corps when I graduated from Annapolis, and I was a pilot for the Marine Corps until I realized that I was not going to prosper by staying in the Marine Corps. And at the same time, I was questioning my future in the Marine Corps. The North Dakota Air National Guard recruited me to come up to Fargo, North Dakota and fly F-4 Phantoms and F-16 uh, Vipers. That's VIPERS. That's an air defense F-16. And the combination of those factors really set me in motion because on the one hand, my parents were both veterans of World War II, and I was a loyal Marine for a while. And then I joined the North Dakota Air National Guard, and I was very, very capable of assessing what happened on 9/11. So, without beating around the bush any further, what happened on 9/11 was either some drones or some CGI attacked World Trade One and World Trade Two. The other two targets were the Pentagon, and I'll get to that in just a split second. But the fourth target that did not get struck was the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, and the Senate and the Congress were all in that building, and that's what United 93 was supposed to strike. United 93 did not strike the Capitol and kill the Congress and the Senate, and the No Fear Coalition, and I didn't make that up, you can look it up, No, N-O, Fear, F-E-A-R, Coalition. They were in the Capitol building that morning, and excuse me, not the vice president, the president's wife was in there, and there were a lot of somewhat dignified, allegedly. I don't find any dignity in treason, but so be it. That's what we had on 9/11. We had treason of the highest order, and four of those traitors have been dealt with to the best of my knowledge. One of them being my sister, Christine Marcy, another one being George H.W. Bush, Hillary Clinton, and then John McCain. So let's get back to what did hit which target. As I alluded to, the aircraft that were either visible to the public in New York City were droned aircraft very similar to what would have been United 175 and American 11. And how do I know they were droned? Well, because my part-time job was flying interceptors for the North Dakota Air National Guard, and I could tell by the maneuvering characteristics of those either drones or CGIs. They were demonstrating the type of control that was impossible with a human pilot. Therefore, they were under the command and control of the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot. And how do I know about that? Well, it's not really important how I know about it. I knew about it in December of 1988 when my sister called and asked for some help. She was in charge of the U.S. Marshal Service, and she implicated herself because on 9/11, I saw the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot on full display with what I saw with my eyes looking at the same TV pictures of all the rest of you. Let's go back now to the Pentagon. If we are to believe that American 77, which was a Boeing 757, struck uh, wedge one. I think I might have said seven earlier. Um, but had a 757 gone through that 15 to 16-foot circular hole, the wings would have been found, and the tail, which is called the empennage, that's a French word. Uh, the wings, the two engines, and the empennage would have been found outside the circle because a 757 could not fit inside the circle. So, what was it? Some people think it was an airliner. Some people think it was a missile. And in this case, it was both an aircraft, not an airliner, though, an obsolete Raytheon private corporation. Raytheon owned A3 Sky Warrior that had been heavily modified at Fort Collins Loveland, Colorado airport under the tutelage and supervision by Darrell Skurich. I'll spell that Darrell Skurich. And he had two Raytheon owned A3 Sky Warriors, which were obsolete, two engines, swept wing, very powerful and fairly fast moving attack bombers. And they, in fact, were the heaviest and biggest Navy fleet aircraft that ever operated routinely off aircraft carriers. There was one case of a Marine Corps C-130 that operated on and off a carrier just to demonstrate the ability to do that. But let's get back to that circular hole. A lot of people think they were aware of a missile hitting the Pentagon. Those people are correct. It was a Maverick AGM air-to-ground missile that was known by the nickname Bunker Buster. That type of a missile could attack hardened structures and blow holes in them. And in this case, that missile was carried on the Sky Warrior, A3 Sky Warrior, owned by Raytheon. And according to the FBI films that have never been made public, gee, what a surprise. 3 frames before the aircraft would have hit the outer wall of the Pentagon, 3 frames prior, an AGM Maverick air-to-ground missile, Bunker Buster, was fired from the aircraft. That blew a hole in the wall, and then timed very closely thereafter, a very sinister explosive layer called smack-sonic insulation. It looks like thermal, vibrational, and sound insulation, but it's not. It's 2 layers of white silicone or plastic or rubber around a black layer in the middle, which was rocket fuel. And so 3 frames before the aircraft, the Sky Warrior, would have hit the wall, it was detonated with smack sonic, which reduced the entire A3 Sky Warrior into mostly plasma. Plasma is the lowest reducible form of matter. And but unfortunately, they didn't have quite enough explosives on it. And that's how this case is going to be Um, this is going to be solved after Donald Trump and the military white hats declassified 9/11, because there were 4 pieces of the A3 Sky Warrior that were found inside the Pentagon, not outside the Pentagon. One of them was a straight air refueling probe, and anyone that knows anything about airliners knows that they don't have refueling probes, but A3 Sky Warriors do. Then there was a rectangular fuselage section that was seen coming out of the Pentagon. It was on some probably plywood type table hoisted by about 8 men in uniform, and it had a blue tarp on it. And so you couldn't tell that it was a rectangular fuselage section, but that's exactly what it was. And for those of you who've studied 757s, you know their fuselage is round. Okay, what type of a transport category aircraft has a rectangular fuselage? Only the A3 Sky Warrior. They also found a turbine wheel from one of the 2 engines, and it was not the size of a turbine wheel that would have been on a 757. It was the exact size, and it was in fact a turbine wheel from one of the engines, and it was the turbine wheel off an A3 Sky Warrior engine. And the 4th piece of incriminating and, dare I say, damning, yeah, I just dared, didn't I? A triangular plexiglass window that was right over the head of the left seat where the pilot in command of a A3 Sky Warrior would sit. And that was a precise piece of evidence because it didn't come off a 757. It came off a Raytheon, private corporation Raytheon, obsolete A3 Sky Warrior. So there you just have exactly what hit the Pentagon and when it hit. The missile hit the Pentagon the minute it was fired from the forward part of the A3, but then 3 frames later, what was left of the A3 went through that hole because it was reduced to plasma. So I think what we can conclude here at this point is that my sister Hillary Clinton, George H.W. Bush, and John McCain were responsible for the attack on the Pentagon because they planned it. And how do I know they planned it? Because I gave my sister instructions on how to keep airliners safe from federal prisoners, because over in Hawaii there was no federal prison, but they did have federal courts, and they had a problem getting the convicts that were going to face judgment in a court. They had to get back to the states. So I hope that helps clear up 9/11 to a certain degree. I mean, that's enough to hang everybody involved that's still alive. They've already taken care of the foremost uh, guilty parties. So that raises the question, and this is an open question, and I don't have the answer yet. I will get it, and the Trump White Hats will get the answer. If they get it first, fine. I'll get it soon thereafter. What was the purpose of the second A3 Sky Warrior that was videotaped, satellite imagery taped by Russia? Because the other A3 was launched off the USS George Washington. And what is its purpose, or what was its purpose? I think the most likely scenario or explanation would be that it was the maintenance spare. In other words, if the Sky Warrior that hit the Pentagon had any type of a maintenance malfunction or an incapacitating situation that would cause them not to be able to succeed the or succeed in the attack. Well, the second A3 Sky Warrior, once again, that these two were also remotely controlled. They could have brought in the second A3 and completed the attack. So they tried hard, but they failed miserably. And here comes the punchline. Who was most responsible? And uh, and how did that most responsible person, George H.W. Bush, how was he identified on the morning of 9/11? Here it comes, and I'll try to speak calmly and clearly. On the morning of 9/11, when United 93 at Newark's Liberty International Airport was delayed in taking off, it was delayed 41 minutes, not 40, not 42, 41. How does that relate to George H.W. Bush? He was POTUS number 41. So there you have the guy at the top, and right behind him was my own sister, Christine Marcy. So, Jenny, I think that's enough for now. Should we go to questions and answers?
Wow. Yeah. I'm just kind of mind blown, but yes, absolutely. Thank you for that, Field. Amazing, amazing information, everybody. Probably a lot that none of us knew. I didn't know a lot of this until last night. So thank you for sharing, Field. Absolutely. We'll go into questions. So everybody, if you have a question for Field, please feel free to raise your hand. I will unmute your mic and you can ask Field your question or write your question on the wall underneath his Field Mcconnell logo and I will read the question. So Rebecca, you had your hand up. Your mic is unmuted. If you want to ask Field your question, go ahead. Go ahead, Rebecca. Hit the blue button in the middle of your screen.
I'm sorry, I accidentally did that. I apologize. I'm just enjoying listening.
No worries. Thank you. All right. So if anybody has any questions for Field regarding what he just spoke about, I'm actually kind of surprised that nobody has any hands up regarding that because that's some pretty powerful information. And I'm seeing some questions on the wall, but they don't have anything to do with what Field just spoke about. So please, everybody, if you have a question regarding what Field just spoke about, please raise your hand. I will unmute your mic or write your question on the wall. Otherwise, I'll go into some of these questions, everybody. But remember, Field, he kind of has a lane that he stays in. Serco, SES, 911, MH370. So, I'll read some of these questions to him. But if he can't answer them, then respectfully, it's because his focus is in other areas. So, just an FYI. Okay, Linda Manson, I'm going to mute your mic. Go ahead and ask Field your question. Go ahead, Linda. Your mic is unmuted. Linda Manson, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, Field. Hi, Jenny. My
Hello.
question today is, did the Israeli government or the Mossad have anything to do with orchestrating or carrying out 9/11? And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Linda.
That's a good question, and I'm not aware of anything they did other than the dancing Israelis seen in New York City that morning. But their names come up in the last couple of weeks again. Relating to Netanyahu and 9/11 and what they are alleged to have participated in, I frankly do not know. But I've already listed the four people that are most responsible for the failed attack of 9/11. And once again, those four people are George H.W. Bush, a German, Christine Marcy, Kristine, Marcy, Marcy, my own sister, Hillary Clinton, supposedly, her real name would be Hillary Rockefeller, because Bill Clinton was not a Clinton at all. Bill Clinton was a Rockefeller. His sperm donor was Governor Winthrop Rockefeller of Arkansas, and his mother, I think she was from Hot Springs, Arkansas. Her last name at some point may have been Clinton, but these people are real. I think they're stupid. They're certainly foolish. They think they can pull off an attack of this nature and not have a lot of experts being able to see right through it. Well, they're wrong. I knew on the morning of 9/11 that the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot was involved because as an interceptor pilot, not an airline pilot, I was both, but as an interceptor pilot, I knew the flight characteristics of either the drones or the CGI simulation was evidence of no human pilot. So the people that did 9/11, they failed. Now, did they kill a lot of people? Well, if you think millions is a lot, I would agree with you, because they used 9/11 and the uh, patsied Muslims. The Muslims could not have flown those aircraft, and they did not, in fact, fly the aircraft. My own college classmate was the captain of American 77, and he didn't surrender his aircraft to any Muslims or Islamists. The Muslims and Islamists were patsied, and I really take great offense at that, to my sister turning them into patsies, because the ninth commandment says, do not bear false witness against your neighbor. It doesn't say, do not bear false witness against your neighbor unless he is a Muslim or an Islamist. No, the Muslims and the Islamists could not have participated in 9/11 in any fashion other than patsies. And so they, not only were they patsies, but by the end of the attack, they were dead patsies. And they would have died in Whiskey 386 Alpha airspace when the aircraft they were in, three of them, United 175, American 11, and American 77, when they were detonated with Smacksonic in Whiskey 386 Alpha airspace, that would be their place of death. Now, I've been to Arlington, and I've walked right up. I didn't walk on his grave, but I walked right up to the headstone of Francis Charles Burlingame, who was the captain of American 77 on that day. And there's nothing left of him. So why they put up a headstone over an empty grave is beyond me. But I guess it's called deception. And now the lady that asked me about the Mossad or the Israel connection, keep in mind that one of their mottos has been, this is a verbatim quote, I'm quite certain, we will wage war by deception. Oh, what a bunch of cowards. And by the way, I've had two Mossad people in my house, two different people, two different times, two different visits. And I have no idea why they wanted to come see me, but I'm not afraid of anybody. God protects me. And so these two Mossad agents, they came to my house. One of them came from upstate New York all the way to Plum City, Wisconsin, and got absolutely nothing out of me. I don't know if he was going to pick my brain or assess my character. Didn't matter to me. He didn't get what he came for. And the other one, I'm not going to identify, other than to say that the second person that was connected to Mossad was living and working in New York City at that time. And so I take it as a great compliment that Israel and Mossad want to know what makes me tick. And I'll just tell them right now, and they don't believe me, what makes me tick? God, my faith, my love of my country, and my adamant refusal to allow international or global child trafficking to go on. And can I stop it? No, I can't stop it alone, but I can help the Trump military white hats come up to speed if they ever were not up to speed. And I'm not saying that's the case, but I can give them a lot of information that helps point them in the right direction. So at some point, and I think that point's going to be in the next 6 months, I certainly hope it's sooner than 2 months, but we need to have closure. We need to have truth. We need to have peace. We need to have a world where children are not auctioned off or harvested live in some cases while they remove body parts or adrenochrome. Somebody's got to stand up for God, stand up for America, stand up for ladies, and stand up for children. And I'm one such person, but I'm not the only one. There's a lot of good people out there, and this victory has already been won in heaven, and it will be revealed when the white hats and Trump decide to disclose it, declassify it, reveal it, pick your verb. It doesn't matter. But did I happen to answer your question during that run-on answer, ma'am?
Yes, Field, you did, and I appreciate you sharing about the Mossad. I did wonder about the Israeli art students that had been in one of the two towers prior to 9/11. I don't know.
Yes.
There were some fuses or something that they supposedly were helping to install. So that part I really didn't understand about the Israeli art students, why they would even be in the towers, be allowed.
That's a good question for Jeb Bush's brother. I think his name's Norman, something like that.
Marlin, is it
He was
Marlin Bush? Martin?
probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, but those Israelis, the students that were putting some fuses in allegedly, they might have been patsies also, or just a confusing small population, because the largest amount of weaponization in World Trade One and Two was done by Native Americans from a reservation in upstate or western New York. And isn't it lovely how the deep state likes to implicate minorities that they probably have no respect for, and yet they're gonna let them do the dirty work? Well, the dirty work ultimately did not achieve the goal. The goal was to destroy the United States once and for all for the benefit of the cabal, the deep state, the financial whores, of which that's not HORRORS, it's WHORES. These financial whores, and one of them is a sibling of mine, they'd do anything for money. Well, you can't take your money to hell with you, and it would burn anyway. But when you sell your soul to the devil, you're pretty well causing your own death. And it may not be as pleasant as George H.W. Bush. His was a lethal injection, or John McCain. His was two pistol shots to the left temple. And this stuff is no laughing matter, and I take it very seriously. And I've been talking about 9/11 to this degree of detail for 24 years. And it's a little frustrating to me that it's gone through 3 presidential administrations, and it's not until Trump showed up that a decision was made to declassify 9/11. And I hope to be able to assist in the declassification, because what I can bring to the table is the ability to think on my feet and recall details that phony baloney judges and phony baloney attorneys, and let me identify what phony baloney means. It means the attorneys and the judges that were loyal to England from 1871 until 2024. And now we have a constitutional court in the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. And that's because of two entities, God himself and Donald Trump. And if anybody thinks I'm political, you just don't know what you're talking about. It's not political. It's justice, and justice is coming. Over to you, Jenny.
Did that answer your questions, Linda?
Yes, thank you so much. And I hope you all have a very happy and safe Memorial Day weekend. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your questions. Field, real quickly, I know you were going, you said there was 4 people involved in the 9/11, George H.W. Bush, Christine, Marcy, your sister Hillary. Who was the fourth one? I didn't catch it. Did you say
Oh,
it?
I'm sorry. Yeah, John McCain, the horseshit pilot.
Okay. All right. All right. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, cool. All right. Miss Romaine, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jenny. Hi, Field. I just have one question. So I've heard you at least twice in the previous chats on Jenny's channel here that you have written about 350 letters to President Trump over the years. And I was just curious to know if, I imagine you did, but I'd love to hear it confirmed. Did you include all these details about this missile hitting the Pentagon? And if so, I'm wondering like how many years ago that might have been that you sent those letters? Because I'm just thinking it
It-
would have helped them immensely with what they're about to reveal.
Well, it was during his first administration, and my earliest relationship to Donald Trump was in 2015 when a bunch of military professionals, and right there, let me stop and say, I know that there are people out there that can't imagine a military professional. They think that's an oxymoron or mutually exclusive words. No, it's not. There's a lot of professionals in the military, but unfortunately, over the years, prior to 2015 and prior to Trump, the leadership of the military was bought and paid for. And that goes back to Vietnam with General Westmoreland and narco trafficking out of the Golden Triangle. And this is going to make some people sick, but a lot of the drugs that came out of the Golden Triangle in Vietnam were in plastic bags inside the torso of slain Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Navy veterans who gave their life for a bunch of fleabag military guys that had 4 stars, fat retirements, and no moral courage. That sounds like a rather stiff indictment. It is. It's also accurate. So I started rooting for Trump to get in 2015. And fortunately, a bunch of loyal military white hats were supporting him. And this is a case where the good guys won. And now in this day and age, May 23rd of 2025, the loyal military is still winning because finally, for the first time in my military history, I was in the military 26 years. We have we have a leader, as in a commander in chief, that is loyal to the military servants of the United States, and it goes both ways. The professional military officers and men are loyal to President Trump, and I really admire President Trump, and I'm not political, but then he's not political either. He's a chief executive officer of the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. And is he the president? Yeah, he's the president. Does he get paid anything? No, I think he donates it. I'm not sure to whom, but he doesn't put it in his own pocket because there's no room in his own pockets because he's done so well in business. And now the United States of America, the constitutional republic, is prospering under his skilled hand. He's really fixing America, and I take great satisfaction in being a small part of that and I want to address your specific question, Romaine. You asked about the 350 letters, and that's exactly the correct number, 350. And they went from Field Mcconnell, USMC 0116513, to President Donald John Trump uh, at the White House during his first administration. And I am quite confident that some segment of the military white hats are monitoring Jenny's shows when certain guests come on. And many of you people, including Romaine, would know the name 107. And 107 gave me a nickname once of bird dog. And I said, well, what do you mean by bird dog? I know two definitions. He said, well, Field, you're just like a bird dog. You point out to Trump and his military white hats in which direction to look. And then they take it from there and they look where you tell them to look, and they find the perpetrators. And the perpetrators that are working against the United States of America in this current generation, they pay the ultimate price for treason against the United States of America at a time of declared war. And when was war declared? Right after 9/11, and it's never been canceled. We're still in a wartime setting, according to legalistic people, and I'm not legalistic, I'm a Christian. But anyway, that doesn't matter what I am. But I'm alive and kicking, and I think that I'm pretty good at kicking the rear ends of these people that want to destroy my country. Romaine, did I come close to answering your question?
You sure did. Thank you. I love the bird dog description. That suits you well.
You all, yeah, it's fine. I sometimes scratch my head, which I shouldn't do because I don't have much hair left. But I just can't figure out why other people can't see what's going on. Because the people that are trying to destroy our country are not even close to as capable as the people that are dedicated to protecting our country. And I'm one such person, and I'm not patting myself on the back because I only have done this because in Psalm 94:16 and Ephesians 5:11, God twice said, who will take down this evil in the world? Who will stand up for me? And then in Ephesians 5:11, it says, have no part of the evil deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. So I guess if you have a sense of humor, you can consider me an exposure artist. But I really take my job seriously. I've taken 4 oaths to America, one in the 28th of June of 67, entering the Naval Academy, one on the 9th of June of 71, exiting the Naval Academy and entering the Marine Corps, and one on July 5th of 1977 when I left the Marine Corps and I joined the North Dakota Air National Guard, where I flew very fast-moving interceptor aircraft, first the F-4, they could go 15 or 1600 miles an hour, and then later the F-16, which wasn't quite as fast, but it could outmaneuver anything of its generation. Now there's other aircraft that could outmaneuver a F-16, but it would be close because the F-16's been around 40 years, but they've not fallen victim to enemy weapons very often, very, very rarely. So thank you for that great question, Romaine. And Jenny, over to you.
Thank you, Field, and thank you, Romaine, for your question. Appreciate it. Okay, Field, so let's go in here. We've got, okay, real quickly, before we go on to the questions here on the board, does anybody else have any questions regarding what Field has just talked about regarding the 9/11 and the Pentagon? So if you have questions, please raise your hand and I will unmute your mic. I do see one here real quickly. It says, this is from Anita Peanut. Field, do airline pilots know the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot exists? Also, do Boeing employees know about it?
You can bet that the Boeing employees know about it. But, and the reason I say that so strongly is I once, about 10 years ago, I was talking on Able Danger and I alluded to the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot. And a gentleman who was in a management position at Boeing, I think he was trying to humiliate me. I don't know. He didn't humiliate me, but he said, Field, you're all wet when you say Boeing uninterruptible autopilot. I work for Boeing. I'm in a position where if the autopilot was installed, I'd know about it. And I take criticism quite well, and I, kick it to the curb, because I just said to this gentleman right on the live show, I said, would you like me to send you the patent for the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot? And then he's like a deer in the headlights. He said, well, if the patent exists, I'd love to see it. And I said, okay, in 3 minutes, check your email box. And then at the end of the radio show, he contacted me again in the open chat room. And he says, Field, I owe you an apology. And I said, first of all, you don't owe me anything, but why do you think you should apologize to me? He said, I just read the patent for the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot. And as a senior person at Boeing, I didn't even know it existed. Well, he could be forgiven, and I forgave him. First of all, he can't criticize me, because if I say it, I can prove it. But on the other hand, I said, don't feel bad about not knowing about that autopilot, because it was Jeffrey Immelt, Immelt, the CEO of General Electric, that manufactured the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot and shipped it to you, because you had a contract with GE to produce some radio and navigation equipment, and they just put a little bonus in one of their shipments, and it was 96 copies of the BUAP. And this can be researched most effectively by looking up 96 Boeing uninterruptible autopilots exported in violation to the Foreign Sales Act, or whatever that thing is, because they didn't have permission. Boeing didn't have permission to export them to China, which they did. And the real culprit here is General Electric, and specifically the guy in charge of General Electric during that delivery of Boeing uninterruptible autopilots was Jeffrey Immelt. And, they always say, follow the money. Jeffrey Immelt had $275 million of company paid life insurance. What did General Electric gain by insuring Immelt's life for $275 million? Well, that question will be asked at the tribunals for some of the people that are going to be answering these potential charges that I have dropped in the lap of the military white hats serving Donald Trump and the United States of America.
Thank
Over
you,
to you,
Field.
Jenny.
Great answer. Thank you, Fields. Okay, so here's another one. It says Palm Mom. This one isn't related to what you just your presentation that you just did. It says, do you know if the Boston Marathon was a staged event? Thank you, sir.
Yes, it was a staged event. And, how could anybody have escaped this? But, to play the sympathy card, they had somebody who was allegedly an amputee in a wheelchair being pushed by a peer. And right in front of a camera, the amputee's fake leg fell off. And so I do not believe that he was really an amputee. I believe they had it faked and they got, and this is something, if anybody knows me to be misspeaking now, please get a hold of Jenny, send her an email, and she'll get it to me. But yeah, that was all faked. And those patsies, a couple of young men with Russian names, they didn't have anything to do with it. Over and over and over and over, the global cabal and the deep state, they tried to scare us. Well, you're not going to scare the military white hats. You're not going to scare the Marines of any generation. Marines have a special place in the hierarchy of the military in the United States. They are referred to as the president's own. And what that means, the United States of America, the president can order United States Marines into combat on foreign soil without going through the congressional and senatorial type servants. Uh, the Marines do not need permission to go protect the welfare and the integrity of the United States of America. If they know there's some big weapons on foreign soil, the Marines will get over there and destroy the weapons or die trying. That's what Marines do. They will prevail or they will die. Nothing in between. So, God bless the Marine Corps. And am I sold out on the Marine Corps? No, I quit voluntarily because I knew I wasn't going to get ahead. And I know why I wasn't going to get ahead, and it doesn't matter. That's more of a political issue. And if you think that there's not political issues within the military, you're a little naive. Some of the biggest criminals that have ever been a threat to America have been wearing military uniforms, some of them with 4 stars. And those guys are called traitors. And John McCain and George H.W. Bush, my sister and Hillary Rockefeller are 4 such traitors. And I believe they've all been dealt with. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Field. And since you're talking about traders, here's a question right here from River Rat. It says, Fields, are Trump's current appointees traders like first administration, such as Mike, alleged pedo Pence, and Mike, Mossad, Pegasus, 7 rays of light, praying, Flynn? So Mike Flynn. If so, can you name for us one besides J.D. Vance, whom you did a few weeks ago? Go ahead. And then there's a second part to this question. Go ahead, Field, on that first part.
Well, I think that guy, whoever forwarded that question, didn't he just cast a little doubt on General Flynn?
Yes, and I'm gonna say Flynn's a good guy, and a lot of people are have a lot of there's a lot of noise out there being talked about Flynn, and I say ignore it. But what do you say, Phil? Go ahead.
I'd say ignore it. General Flynn is a legit guy. And when the public finds out who his father was, or perhaps his grandfather, they'll stop all this BS about Flynn being a bad guy. No, Flynn is a good guy. And Flynn and his adult son are very adamantly opposed to global child trafficking, as am I. And, my wife died 4.5 years ago, but she was an English lady, and she was fearless in protecting children. And I think I said this last night when we were having a similar discussion. But on the day I asked her to marry me, which would have been in 2015, and we ultimately got married in 2016. But I said, before you say yes or no, keep in mind that you can go from being a newlywed to a widow in less than a week because of the nature of what I do. And then I'm not being spooky. What I do is I'm a whistleblower, and I really don't take no for an answer. If I'm going to go after somebody, it's because I already know they're guilty. I just got to prove how. And that's typically not that difficult. And the military white hats loyal to Donald Trump, which is all the military white hats, they know instinctively when they see a leader, because the military leadership at the top levels has been vacant or AWOL, meaning absent without leave. There's been a lot of really bad leadership in the military at the highest levels. If you control the top floor, you control all the floors below it. That's the analogy I would use. So, there are a lot, when I was at my most active level in exposing military leaders, I exposed a lot of them and I never got any blowback. And it's because, number one, I was right. Number two, they're cowards. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Field. Okay, now what about Mike Pence? Yes, he's a traitor. Go ahead, Field.
Well, wait a minute. I'm glad you brought that up. Do you remember, and no pressure, you may not remember, but do you remember the significance of Sam 239?
Yes, wasn't that
It was,
wasn't that the call sign or the flight? Because Paul Ryan and he were trying to do an assassination attempt on Trump. Then they
well,
turned that plane
yes, you're
around.
right. Yeah, they did. Pence, who is a little sissy, and he and his wife together sodomized 82 young men in an underground bunker in Indiana, being protected by the Indiana State Police. But when I found out on the 1st of July that John Sununu, who's former White House chief of staff for G.H.W. Bush, and he's from New Hampshire, and his name, John, it's just like an outdoor John, John. And Sununu is Sununu, Sununu. And Paul Ryan from Wisconsin, what a little crybaby he was and is. And then Mike Pence, the guy who murdered, sodomized, and perhaps murdered all of them. I don't know. We'll find out. When I say we, who? Well, the military white hats. And right now on my living room coffee table, I have two military white hats. So people can read into that whatever they want to read into it. But I think I've provided you with a picture of those white hats before, Jenny. It doesn't matter. I can do it again. But yeah, what happened on July 1st, I sent a message through the military white hats alerting Donald Trump to the fact that a trio of traitors intended to assassinate him on July 4th of that year when he would be speaking on the Capitol steps. Okay, then July 2nd came around, and two of those guys, Paul Ryan and Mike Pence, were in a U.S. Air Force 757. But, the Air Force can't use Boeing numbers. They have to have their own designation. So in the Air Force, the 757 is called a C-32. And on the 2nd of July, 2 days before the assassination was to take place, they filed a flight plan to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, so they could hook up with John Sununu to put the finishing touches on the assassination plan. And unfortunately for those trio of idiots, and idiots, yeah, that's what I said, idiots. They thought they'd get away. They must think nobody's watching. Uh, Believe me, there's levels of surveillance going on against all the bad people and in favor of all the good people. And so when Air Force Two, which is the official call sign of any aircraft carrying a vice president who's currently in office. So when Air Force Two picked up the radio and said Andrews Tower, they were at Andrews Joint Forces Base in Clinton, Maryland. Andrews Tower, this is Air Force Two. We're ready to copy our clearance to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And the response was, Air Force Two, this is the Andrews Tower. You're going to get no clearance, and you do not have permission to start your engines. Hold your position. Stronger message to follow. And they didn't go flying that day. And so on the 3rd of July, they were probably wondering, WTF is going on? And they're all cowards. I mean, the three of them, a 98-pound terminally ill Marine recruit could whip the shit out of all three of those guys and not draw a heavy breath. But enough about that. That's conjecture, not a fact. Oh, no, it's a fact. Any Marine could take them all three. What happened next was July 4th came up, and Trump knew that everyone knew that Trump was going to be speaking on the Capitol steps. And so they sort of abbreviated the speaking in terms of words and time to reduce the exposure to any last minute fine tuning of the assassination attempt. They thought they had it stopped, and it turns out they were right. So then what happened this is the greatest act of cowardice of which I'm currently aware. Mama's boy, that's Mike Pence. He decided he better get out of DC while the getting was good. So he went out to Andrews and he got on a Gulfstream, which is a private type executive transport. In this case, it was a Gulfstream that was owned by the Air Force. And because he was, at the time he got on the airplane, he was still the vice president of the United States. It was given the call sign Air Force Two. And so Air Force Two was given a clearance to go out to probably Indianapolis. It's somewhere in Indiana, because Mike Pence was going to go crawl in a rabbit hole and hide, coward. But halfway out to Indiana, they got a call from probably Cleveland Center, I'm guessing. That's speculation, but Air Traffic Control Center. And so let's say it was Cleveland. Maybe the conversation went like this: Air Force Two, Cleveland Center. Go ahead, Cleveland Center. This is Air Force Two. They said, no, not exactly. Your call sign now is Sam 239, and you are to turn 180 degrees and go back on an initial heading of like 103 degrees, direct to Andrews Air Force Base, and that's your destination. And we will give you more details as they become salient. And so they turned around, and at this point, it would be best if the former vice president, when his call sign was changed from Air Force Two to Sam 239, that indicated he'd been stripped of his position as vice president. So he went back to Andrews, and I don't like using opinions or speculation, but I think he was probably taken into custody, and he's probably being held to this day in a very secure facility awaiting his tribunal if it has not already occurred, which it may or may not have already occurred. But did I answer the question, Jenny?
Yes, you did. Great job, Field. And there's a second part to it. Real quickly, it says, would you say that the traders make up 25, 50, 75, or 90% of the people that Trump has appointed close to him?
This is pure speculation. I have great respect for Donald Trump, and I think that there's zero traders working.
We lost you, Field. Did you get a call? We lost you at zero traders working with, that's where we lost you. Are you there? We lost you, Field. You might have to go out and come back in. Hang on, everybody. He'll be back. I'm thinking he might have got a call. Hang on, let me text him, everybody. See what happens when you're over the target, everybody? I don't know if he got kicked out or what, but I don't see him in here. Patty, do you? I unmuted your mic. Oh, psych. Go ahead,
Hey,
Patty.
Jenny. I think Field needs to go to some of our high schools and do some talking points, either to the students, maybe, or at least like some of our uppers in education. This
Yeah,
is
but
just blowing my
the
mind.
the problem is that a lot of the schools will not allow this kind of teaching in their schools because they're so far to the left that they want to teach the transgender bullshit. So
I
I
know
oh, hold
that
on,
I
here it
know.
is. Hang on, Linda. All right, Field, go ahead. We lost you. What happened? Field, I unmuted your mic. Hang on. Okay, Field, can you speak now? Go ahead, Field. Your mic's unmuted.
Oh, that was a mistake. What was I last saying? What was the last thing I said? Do you recall?
We were talking about the traders and we were asking about the percentage. What did you think was the percentage? And you said that you thought that there were zero traders in the Trump, and that's where we lost you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I said quite a lot after that, and I don't need to regurgitate. No, it's okay. I mean, I'm technologically challenged, but I have some good people around me that take care of technological issues when they're here. But I'm alone today, and I'm sorry for that. But no, I would risk my life. That's the greatest I can do. Risk my life. In fact, maybe I could just give my life if I'm wrong. I'd say Donald Trump does not have a single traitor in his chain of command. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Fields. And real quickly, Linda Hendrickson had a great idea. However, I don't believe because of how the schools are ran and they're so far to the left that they're pushing all this other bullshit that, we needed to get you into some of these schools to teach this true history, right? So I think it's a great idea, but unfortunately, I don't think schools would allow this kind of teaching to be taught in their schools. What are your thoughts on that, Field?
Well, I think now I don't. I'm going to ask you a question. The question is this: you know what a TF is, right? But don't say what it is.
I do, I do.
Okay, here comes the TF solution to that poor education. Well, first of all, let me give Trump another compliment. He dissolved the Department of Education because he feels like I do It's the Department of Brainwashing. They don't give you an education. I got an education. And when I went to the Naval Academy, the cliche back then in 1970 was, we get a $200,000 education shoved up our rear end a nickel at a time. Now that's a little bit colorful, but I'll tell you what, when you get an education like that, you appreciate your education and what you've learned. So the world's greatest TF was, and we can talk about this later, but to reach out to Christian schools or private universities or schools that want their students to know the truth. And, if I were given the opportunity to speak at some of those types of schools, I would go there with the agreed to an agreement in place before I set foot on their school property that if I say anything that offends them or they know to be incorrect, then just, wave a hanky and I will see that that's the end of my speaking. And then I would thank the people for the opportunity to try to educate them. And then I'd go back where I came from. There's no pride in this. I mean, if you're talking about stuff that gets your head chopped off, uh, there's no pride in that. Why would I or anyone else in their right mind ever expose themselves to dying for lying? That's what congressmen do, like Mitch McConnell. He'll lie about anything. He probably doesn't admit that his father's a turtle, but some things you can't hide. So anyway, yeah, I know what I mean. He likes to when the going gets tough. Turtle McConnell pulls his head back under his shell so he doesn't get any blood stains or other stains on his precious head, which is full of garbage. Over to you, Jenny.
Oh, you crack me up, Field. Yeah, I do believe that once, now the Department of Education has been is being dismantled, I believe that would be an absolute amazing thing is get your word out there to the school. So thank you for that idea, Linda Hendrickson. That is a great idea. Here is another question going back to, and then we'll go back here to the hands that I've unmuted. Anita Peanut wanted to know, do you think the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot is installed on the current airplane, since you were just touching on that?
Yes, it's installed on every Boeing, Airbus, uh, Sukhoi, that's Russian, Sukhoi, Bombardier, and Embraer. Embraer is Brazilian. They all have uninterruptible autopilots as long as they are fly-by-wire and glass cockpit aircraft. They're all remotely controllable. Keep in mind that when that device was engineered by Boeing Honeywell, it was meant to be a safety device, but the Clinton murder for hire group, well, they shouldn't be Clintons, the Rockefellers, but William Jefferson Rockefeller and Hillary Roadhog Rockefeller, uh, they took a safety item and turned it into a weapon. And that's, I think, on your wall, Romaine gave you a picture of a t-shirt that I have talking about the weaponization of airliners. And previously, one of the other people that asked a question said, or they asked me, and I don't think I addressed it. They asked me if the current crop of airline pilots know that their aircraft has a Boeing uninterruptible autopilot in it. The answer is no, I don't believe they do. And if they do know, it would be because of my activism to have them removed. That's why I had on paper, I was a 747-400 captain. And before I would go to training, I told the CEO of Boeing to prove to me on which date all 16 of Northwest fleet of Boeing 747-400s had their BUAPs removed. And of course, arrogant people at the top of global corporations, didn't take me very seriously. Of course, he lost his job not too long after that. But the sad truth is, none of the airlines of which I'm aware, and I flew over in Kazakhstan of all places, but none of the airlines of which I'm aware have taught their pilots that they are flying a remotely controlled vehicle. And if the remote control feature is ever activated, it cannot be disabled from anybody inside the aircraft, which I think that's good. That's a safety device that will save many lives if somebody tries to hijack an airliner. But it's in direct conflict with at least the FOM, Flight Operations Manual of Northwest when I was there. It said the pilot in command of any U.S. registered aircraft cannot accept the aircraft and fly it if he has any reason to doubt the safety of the aircraft. Well, that's why I quit flying for Northwest. I wrote to the CEO of Boeing and a copy to the CEO of Northwest, and I said, I've been selected for training on the 747-400, but I will not go to training until the CEO of Boeing gets me a notarized document with his wet signature so that I can be sure that the aircraft for which I'm signing my name on the dispatch release is not capable of being remotely commandeered. And of course, I got nothing but crickets in return, because these people that are in high-paid jobs in private corporations, they don't like losing their job because some pilot has figured out that the airplanes are all provided with remote control guidance. It should be a good deal. It would prevent any human hijacker from ever taking another aircraft. And of course, after 9/11, they put very expensive doors on the cockpit, and that is a good safety feature also. But if any or all airlines are not doing everything they can do to provide safety from A to B for their passengers, that's a failing score, and it's way past time for this to be remedied. And it wouldn't surprise me if at some point I get a call from the Mar-a-Lago area and some military white hat says, if you ever come to Florida again, could you stop by and talk to us? My response to that would be, I'll be on the first flight from Minneapolis to Fort Lauderdale or Miami tomorrow, and I'd go. And I'm used to going, for 38 years, I was on call to fly, and I always flew, and I always flew safely. And that's enough about me. Over to you, Jenny.
Oh, we love hearing about you, Field. Thank you. Okay, so I've got a few hands here that I've unmuted. So, Miss Patty, you had your hand raised. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jenny. Hi, Field. It's Patty. I just have a question. I don't know why I've never asked you this before, but it's a burning question on my mind. The people that were in the plane during 9/11 that supposedly hit the Pentagon, did those families, are they aware of actually what happened before this type of stuff is revealed? Do these people actually know, or are they going to find out like the whole world is going to find out when when it's revealed about this atrocity? Do you have any
I don't
idea with
think,
that?
well, I'm quite certain the surviving family members do not know the truth of how their loved one died. So let me just go ahead for the benefit of anybody who shares a little confusion over this. The very first thing that happens when a remote control instruction, let's just make up a flight number, field airways 123. Well, if there's a BUAP in field airways 123, the very first thing that happens when the remote switch is activated, it shuts down every form of communication from the aircraft going back to the ground. So the transponders off, the radios, there's different types of radios, VHF and UHF, and HF is high frequency, and the ACARS, which is the automatic crew activity reporting system. All of that stuff is shut down. And that's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. But what's even more onerous is once every form of communication outgoing from the aircraft is disabled, the next thing, and this is very, very critical, so I'm going to talk slowly and I hope clearly. The very next thing that happens is the ATI, air tranquilizing infuser. That means it infuses a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas into the cabin pressure system. That ATI is powered but not operating yet. But once it's powered, then if they want to introduce colorless, odorless, tasteless gas into the cabin pressure system, they can select from 3 menu items. Number 1, enough to calm the passengers and flight attendants. Number 2, enough to put the passengers and flight attendants to sleep. Or number 3, enough to kill all the passengers and all the flight attendants. And it shouldn't really harm the pilots if they're doing what their regulations tell them they have to. At the first hint of a cabin pressure problem, they're required to put on their oxygen mask and breathe 100% oxygen. And but that's not the way the airlines work because they're profit motivated. And so the answer to that question is no. The surviving family members of all the dead passengers on the on United 93, United 175, American 11, and American 77, they do not know how their loved ones died, and I just told the world how their loved ones died. They were killed with the ATI, and then, of course, just to make sure, the aircraft were detonated. 3 of them were detonated in Whiskey 386 Alpha Airspace off Norfolk, and one of them was detonated. That was United 93, flying upside down at treetop level in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And it's really sad. And I think I'm a fairly strong person emotionally and morally, but it's really it's troubled me a lot to know this and to know how long I've known it and how publicly I've spoken it and how little the several administrations over the last 24 years have failed to remedy this. It will be remedied. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Field. Did that answer your question, Patty?
Yeah, it's just hard for me to comprehend, I guess, that these families, like Phil was just saying, 24 years later, still just don't know the truth about all this. And I just feel like they are fixing to learn it. Like, we've been hearing Phil speak so long about it, and I just can't imagine what these families, again, will go through. I don't know.
You know, they are going to find out about it, and guess who is going to have to be there for them? We are. We're going to have to be the strongholds for them. So this is why everybody, we've been in this boot camp to learn everything, to be prepared, to be mind strong. You know, be good thinkers, researchers, discernment, because there are those people that are just not gonna. They're gonna fall to their knees when they hear this, and they're gonna come to people like us that have been out here trying to give this information, the truth, and now they're going to be knocking on your doors begging for it. So we need to be prepared for that, and this is why it's so important to be mindfully strong in what we're doing here, because we are at war, and there are people that still don't believe that not that planes don't that planes didn't hit the buildings, the twin towers. So we got to be prepared for that, because it's coming, everybody, and it's closer than ever. So thank you, Patty, for your question. All right, Colleen Patriot, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead. Go ahead, Colleen. Your mic is unmuted. Push the blue button in the middle of your screen. All right, everybody. Field gives us 90 minutes of his time every week, everybody. So he will be back here next Friday to talk about Waco and the bombing in Oklahoma. And then I'm going to try to get him back. We'll do that Friday, and then we'll bring him back to that Monday, get him back on his Monday schedule. Also, to everybody, I am doing something a little bit different with well, not different, but I've added the YouTube, as you guys know, to my social medias. So there is a YouTube channel over there. So with Field, I'm trying to bring a lot of highlight to his shows, because he started out over there with Abel Danger, and that's where his audience is. And many people have been trying to find him. Many have found him through whether it be Telegram here on my show, whether it be Rumble, but bringing it over there to YouTube is has been great. A lot of his audience people have been finding him. So if you know somebody that's been looking for Field McConnell and they're a YouTube audience, share the YouTube over there, everybody. It's the Revival of America, and all of his Field shows are over there. So he is back on YouTube, everybody, and it's under all of my shows over there on the Revival of America. You just go in there and they're all categorized. It says Field McConnell, Captain Kyle, whoever you're looking for, they're there. So Field McConnell, everybody, and for those of you that are going to listen to the replay, he is back on YouTube at the Revival of America. You can listen to all of his shows. He is there, and he's at Rumble. He's on iHeartRadio. He's everywhere. So but for those of you, the YouTube audience, he is back on YouTube. So go check him out, everybody. And everybody have a blessed, happy holiday weekend. There won't be any shows on Monday because it is Memorial Day. And I want all of you guys to enjoy your friends, your family. Go do what you're going to do. Have fun. Don't worry about this stuff, because a lot of this stuff out there is a lot of noise. Stay out of the noise, because we are winning, everybody. So God bless you all. We will see you next Wednesday. We will have Captain Kyle. We will have Dallas. And then I've tentatively got MJ Truth scheduled for Wednesday over on my X Space, but I haven't confirmed the time yet. So he's got kiddos and stuff. So I'll keep you posted on that. And then, of course, Field will be on next Friday to talk about Waco and the Oklahoma bombing. So, Field, with that, we'll see you next week. Same time, same place.
Yes, I'll look forward to it, Jenny. And thank you for allowing me to appear on your platform. And God bless you.
God bless you, Field. We love you. And everybody here, God bless you. Have a safe holiday weekend. And we will talk to you on Wednesday. God bless you. Have a great weekend. Good night, or goodbye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye bye.